There are two different ways to thread a needle. The most common way is to just find the hole of the needle, so that's going to be in the eye, the opposite of the pointy end, and just try to stick it through. Stick the little thread through the hole. So I was able to do it on the first try, but that's because I've done this a lot. So if you are struggling, there are a couple things you can do. First, check the end that you're sticking through the hole. Make sure it's nice and sharp. If you do see a little tiny piece of fuzz there, sometimes that can interfere, so you can always take your scissors and snip it so it's nice and clean edge, especially if you've been trying a lot and it's not working. You can always put it through pinch it with your mouth, lick your lips a little bit, and then pinch it with your lips. And that little tiny bit of moisture will help it to come together, and that will usually make it easier as well. And if you've tried that a few times and it's still not working, we also have these little threaders. So the way these work is that you still have to put the wire through that little hole, but the wire is stiffer, so it's usually easier to get it through. So you see now it's in, looks like a T. So now I'm gonna take that thread end, stick it through the wire, pull it so I have a little bit of a tail, and now I can take the needle and pull the needle threader out. So pull that piece of wire out, get rid of the needle threader, and now you see the needle is threaded. So now I have to tie it. So to tie it, you could just tie knots over and over and over again. That can be tedious though. If you just tie one little knot in this, so if I just tied a regular knot, you see how tiny that is. Well, through a lot of fabrics, that'll just pull right through. It won't stop at all. So instead, a better and quicker way to do it, instead of now having to tie multiple knots in the exact same spot, is to make an X with your thread. So you see I'm kind of pinching it with my right hand and then pinching it with fingers on my left hand as well. And then still make sure that you're pinching that little end. You're gonna take your thumb and you're gonna pinch the thread and you're gonna roll. That one didn't quite work, so I'm gonna try that again. So again, I'm gonna start right above the joint of my finger, and you wanna be pulling on that short side pretty tight, and then push really hard with your thumb. Until you have kind of a little lasso. So that one actually folded it on itself a little bit. There you can see it's kind of a knotted looking end. Now to get it really knotted, I'm going to pinch it in my fingers. You see I'm kind of using the side of my nail. So if you have a nail, you can use the side of your nail. You're gonna pull with the other hand. Until you have a nice ugly knot. Yes, it's an ugly knot, but it's nice and big. It's not gonna pull through the fabric, and we're gonna hide it in the back of the fabric anyway, so it doesn't matter if it's ugly. So this one has a little bit of a tail. Sometimes they end it more at the end. It really doesn't matter as long as you have that nice big knot in there. So now I'm gonna show you how to get started sewing on this piece of fabric. So imagine I'm doing an appendage. I'm sewing the two sides together. First, I want to take a pin. So the pins are the ones that have the colored heads. And I'm going to put it in and out. So you can see the middle is covered, but we can still see the ends. If I just stuck it in like this, it would be really easy to accidentally bump that and have it slide out. So always make sure you're actually going in and out of the fabric. Also, you see the bad sides are showing. Okay, I want the good sides of my fabric showing together. I'm gonna sew on the bad side, so that way when I flip it, you can no longer see these edges, and you'll just see the nice clean edges on the good side. So imagining that this is an appendage, so say that this is one of my arms. I need to make sure if this is the side that's gonna go in the body, that I'm only gonna sew on these 3 sides. Okay, so if this is the side that's going in the body, I'm gonna leave this side completely open. So I'm actually gonna sew, you see this thread is much darker, much thicker than the thread we were using before. I'm gonna use this, it's embroidery thread. Normally you would not use this for stitching, but just so that you can see my lines a little bit better. So I'm gonna start in the back. Honestly, for appendages, it doesn't particularly matter, but for your details it will. So it's just good to get in that habit of starting from the back. I'm gonna pull it all the way through. And you want to, I could have even started a little closer to this edge, but you see I'm not too close to this edge. You wanna be at least 1/4 of an inch away from this edge, the edge that's gonna end up getting flipped, because fabric can sometimes start to fray, and when fabric frays, it will, if your stitches are too close, they'll just fall right out. So there's my first stitch. So now I'm going to go up again, and I'm trying to go in a perfectly straight line. It's a little bit harder for me to pull mine through since it's so thick. Yours won't be quite as difficult. And now I'm gonna put it back down again. So you're always going front to back or back to front. When you're doing your details, if you want to do the kind of stitch where you go over the edge, that would be okay because that would be a detail stitch. However, for flipping, you do not want to do that. You need to do just a basic running straight stitch. So you're always going to go front to back, back to front. And you see the space, the length of the stitch should be the same as the space between the stitches. Before you start, if you would like to draw a line, no, you don't want to use Sharpie or something that's going to bleed through, but maybe just with like a pen or a pencil, you can do that. Or you can even take a Sharpie and put dots to remind yourself where you're going to be stitching. So I would continue stitching all the way here, and then once I hit the edge, I would continue going around the corner and again go all the way through until I hit this end, and I would tie it off. So I'm going to show you how you're going to tie this off even though I'm not quite there yet. So you could just tie it, so try to tie a knot right where this one ended. But that can be difficult sometimes to get it right perfect where it ended, and you don't want it loose at all because then that will loosen up all of your stitches. Whoops, see? That didn't work at all. My knot ended up way over there. So instead, you can actually go in and out. And remember this part between the stitch and the edge of the fabric, this is the part that's getting stitched and flipped. So it's getting flipped. So no one's gonna see this edge. This is gonna be totally covered on the inside once I flip it. So I can go in and out really close to each other. Oops. See, the embroidery thread is so thick, it's all getting caught on itself. Okay, and you see, remember I accidentally just tied that little knot, so I'm actually gonna get stuck here. You would be able to pull it all the way through, but you see there's a little bit of a loop. So I can pull that through and then do it a second time. Pull it through that knot, tie it tight, and now I have a nice sturdy knot. And you see, it's not done yet again, but when I flip it, that part that I did stitch together, you see it's nice and clean. We have a nice clean edge right there. So you can see just a tiny bit of my yellow thread peeking through. Since you are using a much thinner thread, that should not be an issue. Just use, for this one, I would have used the black thread, but if I was using a lighter, say a light pink or something, I would have used the white thread because those are just a little bit closer to each other. But once you're doing your details, so say this piece for some reason is going to get stitched on the front, okay? So this is one of my details, not one of my appendages. I would only use yellow thread if I wanted it to see a yellow dashed line, or I'd only use the brown thread if I wanted to see a brown dashed line. Otherwise, I'd use the white because the white's going to blend in perfectly. So we do have some colored thread as well for when it's time for you to actually sew on your details.